Well, good morning, councillors and council staff. Good morning to all of those who are joining us on the live stream. Welcome to this 2020 budget adoption meeting. I'd like to start by recognising and acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather. In the Sunshine Coast local government area, we have two traditional owner groups, the Kabi and Jinnaburra people, and I pay our respects to their elders past and present and to all Indigenous people. We have no apologies today for this important meeting. I would like to inform councillors that I would draw to your attention that on the 21st of May 2018, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 came into force. These amendments include the new Division 5A, which provides new legislative arrangements for dealing with councillors' personal interests in local government matters, and these arrangements will apply to how we manage such matters at today's meeting. So in the event someone has a material personal interest or conflict, or indeed a perceived conflict, please raise that before the item. I'm going to ask for somebody to move the suspension of standing orders to allow the live streaming of this meeting in the interests of the safety and health of the community. The Local Government Regulation 2012 has recently been amended in relation to public attendance at council meetings, and this is to enable councils to comply with national public health directions related to COVID-19. Someone prepared to move, please, that we suspend standing orders? Councillor Dixon, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Babarowski, thank you. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. First item for today's meeting is item 4.1, the operational plan for 2020-21, and I'd call on Bill Hadrill to make a presentation. Thank you, Bill.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. The purpose of this presentation is to seek your endorsement of the operational plan for 2020-21. The operational plan builds on the corporate plan's long-term aspirational vision towards achieving balance between community, environment and economic objectives as Australia's most sustainable region, healthy, smart, creative. Through its alignment to the strategic goals of the corporate plan and the budget process, the plan operationalises strategy and provides priority deliverables for the year ahead. Key elements of the plan include a clear line of sight between the corporate plan and the operational plan, ensuring strategies, plans and projects identified in the corporate plan are all included in the operational plan. Alignment to the budget process and inclusion of council services. In doing so, recognising the importance of day-to-day service delivery and providing an opportunity to highlight service achievements as well as updates on council's larger projects and initiatives. The operational plan doesn't cover everything that council does. It does, however, demonstrate that council is committed to progressing the priorities established in our long-term strategies and, again, the corporate plan. It provides a focus on what we said we would do, the pathways to get there and the activities that progress us towards achieving our vision. Mr Mayor, councillors, the Sunshine Coast Council Operational Plan 2020-21 has been prepared in parallel with council's annual budget process and satisfies the obligations under the Local Government Regulations 2012. It is recommended that council adopt the Sunshine Coast Council Operational Plan 2020-21.
Thank you, Bill. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Have a seconder? Councillor Cox, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Hungerford?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The operational plan and the annual budget are complementary documents and are developed in parallel to provide consistency between commitments in Council's works program and the resourcing allocations determined as part of the annual budget. The operational plan provides the annual operational activities and identifies corporate responsibilities and resources to support the delivery of the Sunshine Coast Council Corporate Plan 2020-2024. It is supported by Council's annual budget, which we have after this, that allocates for key activities, projects and core service delivery. Now, the operational plan lead responsibility for each operational activity is allocated to a group within council. Each area of council is responsible for delivering their allocated operational activities and the reporting on implementation through quarterly and annual reporting processes, and we have those in our monthly meetings. The operational activities are also incorporated into each group and branch's business plans, as well as individual performance plans to provide clear accountability. Each group is responsible for managing the scheduling, delivery, performance and reporting for these activities, projects and services for which they are lead responsibility in line with the commitments and expectations of council. So, Mr Mayor, I put this to you. This is our organisation having clear guidance on how the activities are delivered and rolled out, and the budget provides those resources.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Any other speakers? Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I'd just like to bring up an item on page 22 of 199 under a strong community, and it's item 1.4.3, and that's about progressing the Sunshine Coast Mass Transit business case and the urban transformation project in partnership with key stakeholders. Now, when I look at it coming under a strong community, where it talks about together we thrive, in all our communities people are included, treated with respect and opportunities are available to all. My concern about the process that we've decided to take, Mr Mayor, is that I believe that the community should be involved, and the community should be involved right at the beginning, to give us endorsement, to be able to say, yes, council, go ahead with that project because we support it. And my concern is that we're doing a lot of work. My understanding is that it will take nearly 12 months before we actually communicate to the community what we are actually doing. And at this stage, as a local councillor, I haven't been briefed at all since we've been here. I know we've had a lot of briefings, but this is a very significant project for council. I understand how critical it is in terms of the possibility of public transport options down the track, but what it does is transform the actual built form along this whole corridor. And most of that is in Division 4. I do know that the community at some point need to understand what the implications of this transformation strategy and workshop behind. I am concerned where the trigger points are being undertaken in terms of rezoning land to higher density and starting the process of purchasing particular parcels of land that may be future stations. I am concerned that that is happening without the endorsement of the community. So I put it to you, Mr Mayor, that I would like, if we are going to treat the community with respect, and if we are going to involve the community, that this project here actually take a point in time now to reach out to the community and let them know what the process the council is actually undertaking. Because I think if you talk to people generally about mass transit, having trams, light rail, there'll be people out there that endorse that and would want that. But I think they have to understand that that comes at a trade-off. And if that trade-off changes and transforms the built form so significantly, then that may be an issue that the community may not be prepared to accept. And I think we need to be open and honest with our community. And we need to be upfront, not scared to get the negative feedback. But I think this is a discussion and open dialogue that I think we need to have now rather than 12 months' time.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I thank Councillor Natali for raising the issue. Let me reassure Councillor Natali and the councillors generally and the community that this is a partnership with the state. It will be driven by the state as a process, but it will have an integrated community consultation process as part of the mass transit detailed business case So in fact, by endorsing this plan, the operational plan, you're endorsing a process that will entrench good community consultation as part of that process, and the state are committed to that.
Thank you, Councillor Babrowski. Any further speakers? Would you like to close, Councillor Hungerford? No need to close. We'll put the motion to the vote on item 4.1. All those in favour? Carried unanimously? Yes. Thank you. Councillors, will now move on to item 4.2, which is the budget adoption, which I will present to you from down at the lectern. Councillors and staff and those joining us via live stream, I rise this morning to present Council's budget for the 2020-21 financial year. This is the 9th budget that I've had the honour to present as Mayor of our Sunshine Coast Council on behalf of our council. And I think it would be fair to say that I do so at a time like no other in our recent history. After we experienced the full force of Mother Nature with bushfires and wild storms in the latter half of last year, over Christmas and New Year we watched as a new health pandemic started to hit the headlines in China and beyond. By late January, the virus had been detected in Australia, and by March, national public health directions to keep communities safe and prevent the risk of transmission had effectively shut down many Australian communities. Our Sunshine Coast was by no means immune, with 76 confirmed cases of COVID-19 detected in our council area to date. And while as a community, as a state and as a nation, we have, with disciplined determination, sought to bring the pandemic under control, the impacts on our residents and our economy are both unprecedented and profound. On our Sunshine Coast, the early modelling that we are seeing from our economic development partner ID paints a grim picture. The indications are at this stage, and these are subject to further review and validation, are that we will see gross regional product, that is the size of our region's economy, fall by 14% in the June quarter, with this fall being higher than the state average. Local jobs are forecast to fall by minus 9.1% in the June quarter, which equates to a fall of around 13,541 jobs. If JobKeeper recipients are included, then the unemployment fall is estimated at over 23,000 jobs. And given the industries most impacted, we also expect a significant jump in youth unemployment. While the first impacted industries such as accommodation, food services and retail are showing some early and small signs of recovery, other industries which are large employers such as the building and construction sector are bracing for major slowdowns in the coming months. The national forecasts are that it will take at least 2 to 3 years for the Australian economy to recover, if not longer. Which means governments at all levels have to do the heavy lifting on the behalf of their communities by investing in the rebuild and providing the confidence that is needed to encourage the private sector to do likewise. Our council moved quickly in March to do that, and we've continued to do so as we always seek to put the interests of our community first. Councillors, as you know, I regularly say that confidence is the greatest gift that government can provide to their community. Never in our history has that rung more true than today. We know as a council that it is incumbent on us to bring back into the lives of our residents, our local businesses, our industries and those people elsewhere who are looking for a great place to live and a great place to holiday. I want to commend each of you in particular, our 5 new councillors who have only been in the job for a little over 2 months, for fully appreciating the challenges that lays before us and being committed to do what needs to be done to assist. And so that is why our Council's $782 million budget for 2020-21, which we are here to consider today, is squarely focused on supporting our community and local businesses to get back on their feet and indeed to thrive again. As we seek to recover from the impacts of COVID-19, our Council has left no stone unturned as we fulfil our role as guardians for the well-being of our community. Our Council has taken every opportunity with this budget to assist our residents with their recovery efforts, enabling them to get back to using Council facilities and services and priming our regional economy so local businesses can rebuild. I'm very pleased this year that, as with all previous budgets I have delivered, our Council will again achieve a positive operating result of $4.3 million. But more than anything else, what we want to see is people back in jobs, our community organisations and local businesses doing what they do best, and our Sunshine Coast back on track to be a healthy, smart and creative region. Years of prudent and disciplined fiscal management means our Council is well placed to step up to the plate to assist in these unprecedented times. And in this, I wish to acknowledge the efforts of the 5 councillors who were members of the last 2 administrations, for it is due to the diligence of the last 2 councils that has enabled our Council to assist our community so comprehensively now. This is notwithstanding the $8 million impact the COVID-19 pandemic has had on our 19-20 budget. Councillors, as you know, reducing pressure on ratepayers at this time has been our number 1 priority, which is why I'm proud our Council's 2020-21 budget will provide financial relief for general ratepayers through a $35 COVID rebate on residential and commercial properties rates bill. This one-off rebate will be drawn from our $5 million disaster rehabilitation reserve, which I took to Council, and Council had the foresight to support and establish in 2015 to support our community in the event of a disaster or region-wide emergency. Our community is facing an unprecedented challenge with this pandemic, and so it is more than appropriate we take this step at this time. The rebate will be in addition to the existing on-time rates payment discounts that Council offers, and we've taken the decision that we will not increase the environment, transport and heritage levies this year. So what it means is that even though there is an overall rates increase of 2% this year, with the COVID rebate and the retention of the early payment discount, the majority of our ratepayers will not pay any more for their rates than they did last year if their rates are paid on time. Pensioners will also continue to receive the pensioner rebate. Councillors, I know of no other local government in Queensland which is in this position of having thought ahead for a rainy day. The fact that Council took the step 5 years ago to establish the Disaster Fund Reserve to help our community when they need it most is something which our community can be rightly proud of. Because at the end of the day, it's their money and it's being applied to help our residents at the most difficult of times. Achieving an outcome where the majority of our residents do not have to pay more in their rates this year is the cornerstone of our budget. We're determined not to increase the cost of Council to our ratepayers at this time, when many are confronting some of their greatest challenges yet. It was an objective we set from the commencement of our budget discussions in April after the elections, and we've been able to achieve this on behalf of our community. Supporting our community to get back on their feet and thrive is what the budget is all about, and making this $35 COVID rebate available to the majority of our residents is just one of the ways that this objective can be fulfilled. As I said a moment ago, our ability to take these measures are in no small part due to the disciplined approach to financial management. That is why our Council continues to receive a strong financial rating from the Queensland Treasury Corporation. It also means that we have the capacity to service the ever-changing needs of our community, plan for and deliver the infrastructure our region needs to continue to grow, and step in and provide extensive assistance to our community and local businesses when they need their counsel right by their side. That is exactly what we're doing now. Nowhere is that more evident than in our commitment to our community organisations, the extensive investment we're making in the economic and social fabric of our region through our Capital Works program, the continuing assistance we're providing to local businesses to keep them operating and keeping local people employed. Councillors, I know you all agree that our community organisations are critical to helping our community be safe, healthy and resilient. They are the backbone of our communities across the region, and it's impossible to place a value on the work they do on behalf of our citizens. Our community strategy, which was adopted in November last year, provides a whole new platform for us in terms of how we work with these organisations so that together we thrive, which is why it is important that we look to how we can help them when they're most at risk of being unable to get assistance from those for whom they support. Many of these organisations are struggling with the disruption of daily life which the COVID-19 pandemic and associated national public health directions have caused. So this budget includes an increase in our investment in community grants from $3 million to $4.5 million. This 50% funding increase will enable Council to partner and support not-for-profit groups to help our community thrive once more. We know our community organisations are doing it tough. So to all the volunteers and officials who make these organisations work, we want to assure you that your council is standing with you. We also know that our community is changing and growing, and as it does, we must move with it. Our population continues to grow at 2.3% per annum, one of the highest rates of growth in Queensland. Most of this growth reflects the outstanding lifestyle and abundance of opportunity that there is on offer here on our Sunshine Coast. With the significant growth in remote working capabilities during the COVID-19 pandemic, we can expect that growth to strengthen in the future. Because after all, if it's now easier to work from home, then people will think, why not do it from the best location in the country? With this in mind, this budget continues our record of increasing our investment in the services and facilities that will support the vitality, resilience and inclusiveness of our communities. From $51.5 million on upgrades to community sporting and public facilities, to $11.6 million on our parks, gardens and other public amenities, these are just some of the elements of our extensive $243 million Capital Works program. Our Capital Works program delivers better infrastructure and facilities for our residents right across our Great Sunshine Coast region. But at the same time, it also provides work for local trades and other businesses, helps to keep local people employed and keeps money circulating in our economy. In March, we announced changes to our arrangements for the processing of contractor and supplier invoices, which means that where all the paperwork is in order and the works are delivered, contractors' invoices will be paid in 7 days. To build on this commitment, we have also strengthened the emphasis on the preference for local suppliers within our procurement arrangements, and I'll have more to say on that in a moment. Councillors, in these challenging times, you look after your own first, and that is what these measures are all about. The economic boost that our Council's Capital Works program provides cannot be downplayed. Our Capital Works projects are estimated to provide more than $300 million as a benefit to our Sunshine Coast economy and support well over 1,000 jobs. This year, in addition to the more than $63 million I mentioned earlier for community sporting and public facilities and parks and gardens and other amenities, Council will invest $95.7 million in transportation and stormwater projects, $14.7 million on waste management, $4.2 million for coastal canals and environmental assets, $36.7 million to complete the Sunshine Coast Airport expansion, and $11.9 million on public infrastructure in the Maroochydore City Centre. Our commitment to deliver major regional projects which will help drive a stronger, more responsive and globally connected economy will continue. The new runway at the Sunshine Coast Airport was handed over just on a fortnight ago, and the expansion project is on schedule to be completed by the end of this year. This project will deliver enormous long-term benefits to the Sunshine Coast, including $4.1 billion to the local economy by 2040 and generating around 2,230 local jobs. But it will also play a crucial role in assisting our tourism, aviation and agribusiness sectors to emerge stronger through the recovery process. And the beauty of it is that when we receive the final project payment from Palisade Investment Partners in 2022, the airport expansion project will have been delivered at no enduring cost to the ratepayer. Our budget also includes $40 million to commence construction of the new City Hall in the Maroochydore City Centre. This $59.9 million project is arguably the most shovel-ready project on our books, and work is due to start next month. It is forecast this project will generate around 300 jobs at the time when its employment stimulus is needed most. The business and construction industry has called on Council to ensure the project proceeds, and we've made the decision to do so because it means jobs when they are needed, and we're demonstrating confidence in our own region. If Council can't be confident about the future prospects of our region and the recovery, then we can't expect anyone else to be. Councillors, we've also made it a priority in this budget to support our local businesses and industry to get back on their feet and build back better than before the pandemic. This is consistent with the approach we've followed as a council since we first adopted our regional economic development strategy in 2013. And it is underpinning the objective in our economic resurgence plan, which I was proud to release yesterday. Our local businesses are ratepayers too, and they play a critical role in employing local people and by their expenditure supporting other businesses through the energisation of local supply chains. Since March, Council has provided over $2 million in direct financial support and foregone $353,000 in fee waivers for community and commercial leases, $371,000 in reimbursement or waivers on fees and charges, and $450,000 in refunds on terminated waste collection services to local businesses. This support has benefited over 3,000 business and community groups directly and more than 10,000 indirectly via business advice, support, assistance and referrals. In this budget, our council will be able to continue to provide businesses with their employees with access to our wellbeing and mental health portal, Be Well and Prosper, which we expect will help to make the Sunshine Coast the healthiest business community in the country. This budget is also supporting the private sector to bring shovel-ready projects forward, and we're backing local businesses. As I mentioned a moment ago, Council's procurement policy has been revised to favour local business suppliers even more so we can boost local jobs and continue to improve our local economy. Council spent $213 million with local suppliers up until May in the current financial year, which represents approximately 70% of Council's total procurement spend. This is up from $200 million in the same time last financial year. But now we're planning to do even better. From July 1, contracts valued at up to $250,000 will generally go to local companies. Contracts greater than $250,000 will favour local suppliers by increasing the local assessment criteria weighting from 15% to 20%. Every dollar that stays in our economy has a multiplier effect, which benefits local businesses and boosts job opportunities for our residents. In addition, an incentive assistance program will be introduced to support the private sector with shovel-ready and job-creating projects. The program will be active over the next 18 months to stimulate jobs in the building and construction industries and will complement state and federal government programs. We're also improving Council's responsiveness by introducing business champions across the organisation to fast-track eligible proposals through review within 5 days to allow projects to move forward. Councillors, while our budget is focused on helping our community and local businesses recover from COVID-19, we haven't overlooked our strong, ingrained commitment to protecting our environment and our natural assets. This budget includes our support for environmental partnerships and grants, education services and resources, and other incentives. Importantly, while the environment levy will not increase in this budget, we will continue to maintain and support the purchase and management of land for conservation, catchment and coastal rehabilitation projects. We know the importance our community places on our stewardship of the environment and our region's outstanding natural assets, and that is a commitment we share with our residents. The Blue Heart project is a leading example of how our council is taking action now to identify risks and help our community prepare for the impacts of a changing climate. Working across approximately 5,000 hectares in the Maroochy River floodplain, the Blue Heart seeks to encourage better land and water management practices to proactively respond to a transitioning landscape and explore new carbon storage opportunities. Further strengthening our commitment with the Blue Heart, Council has confirmed that a further 90 hectares of council-owned land within the project area, originally purchased for the purposes of sport, will be managed as part of our conservation estate. This land, which is located west of the Sunshine Motorway at Coolum, as I said, was originally purchased for future sport and recreation purposes, but provides an exciting opportunity to establish an estuarine wetland. The Environment Levy, which is paid by all ratepayers, will also support the continuation of our programs and services to protect and enhance our valued natural environment. From initiatives to protect native plants and animals to programs to better manage our waterways, wetlands and coastal environments, all of which play a crucial role in preserving the lifestyle that we know our community loves and values. The Environment Levy will also enable Council to continue to support its partnerships with private landholders and environmental and community groups. Our Environment and Conservation Program is the envy of other local governments, and we're investing far more in this important area of responsibility than almost any other councils. Our environment and livability strategy has provided us with a clear blueprint, and this year's budget reinforces our ongoing commitment in that regard. Councillors, in wrapping up, whilst there is considerably more in our budget, I think I've broadly covered the field. Whilst this is my 9th budget, it is the first budget in a new term of council, and one that has been delivered in circumstances that I don't think any of us want to see reoccur in the future. Through our collective efforts, we've kept a clear eye on the bottom line, remained disciplined in our decisions, but most importantly prioritised our community in their time of greatest need. I again congratulate each of you for putting your shoulder to the wheel and ensuring we got this job done. You're a credit to our community, and our efforts are something that other tiers of government could learn from. I also want to acknowledge and thank Acting CEO Warren Bunker, Michael Costello and all of our finance team for the sterling job they have done under difficult circumstances to get us to this point today. I'd also like to thank all of our executives and staff who have contributed to the development of this budget, and most importantly will contribute even more to the delivery of the budget. Whilst there is still much to do, the challenges we face, the opportunities we pursue, make us stronger, more determined and more committed to supporting the needs and aspirations of the community we all love. Together we will achieve much, particularly when we approach the task with clarity, optimism and vigour. After all, that's what a healthy, smart and creative region does. Councillors, I commend to you our Council's 2021 budget on behalf of our community. Thank you. Yep. So, councillors, I want to move the adoption of the budget, which is detailed from page 38 and would ask for a seconder.
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Well, I've had my say. I'm going to pass over to Councillor Hungerford and then any other councillors who'd like to have their say. Thank you, Councillor.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd like to point out highlights of this budget. This budget has been developed to ensure long-term financial sustainability for the Sunshine Coast region and totals $782 million. Now, the consolidated asset management plans and the local government infrastructure plans were used to frame and the development of the $242 million capital works program. And these also include the Maroochydore City Centre and the Sunshine Coast Airport project. Now, Council's 2021 core operating result of $4 million is made up of $456 million in operating revenue and funding $452 million in operating expenses. This comes from rates and charges, and detailed in the reserve statement, these account for 69% of Council's operating income, estimated at $316 million, and $231 million of that relates to general rates revenue. Now, the operational budget sees $452 million invested in council core services and projects. Now, Mr Mayor, I did note in a newsletter from a federal member, my federal member, that the federal government is investing $259 billion. That's $259,000 million, or equivalent to 13.3% of the nation's total gross domestic product. And they're doing this to support the workers, household and businesses. But this is primarily debt. And that has to be paid back in the future by sustained taxation. Now, Mr Mayor, in our operational budget, we are funding $58 million to maintain and operate parks and gardens and sporting facilities, $59 million to maintain roads, pathways and stormwater, $41 million in the operations and maintenance of libraries, galleries and community facilities, $32 million for economic initiatives including major events and the operations and maintenance of holiday parks, $29 million towards the environment, including beaches, foreshores and bushland conservation, and $10 million contributed to community events and grants. And depreciation is additional to the summary above. We are delivering that from revenue, not debt. Now, Mr Mayor, in this budget we are giving a $35 COVID-19 rebate from Council's Disaster Fund Reserve, and that's in recognition of the tough times our community is in to try and lessen the blow of COVID-19, but that's a one-off, Mr Mayor. Now, we've been able to deliver that despite the impacts of COVID-19 in the 1920 budget, reducing our operating result down to $585,000. In this year's budget, we've only got a lean $4.3 million in our operating result. We've only been able to deliver this and cushion the blow of COVID-19 in our community because of past sound financial management. So that brings me to our debt policy. Now, Mr Mayor, we have a very sound debt policy. Council will not utilise loan funding to finance operating activities or recurrent expenditure. Council will endeavour to fund all capital renewal projects from operating cash flows and borrow only for new or upgrade capital projects having regard to sound financial management principles and giving consideration to intergenerational equity of the long-term infrastructure projects. And that's why we're investing in income-producing and future building projects in the region. Borrowings for infrastructure that provide the opportunity for return on assets and will take priority over borrowings for other assets. Now, Mr Mayor, I did note during the election campaign, and we're still receiving our inboxes and texts, wild claims from people out there about our finances and how dire they are. But all of our budget documents and all our audited tables are publicly there. Now, a person even with a basic financial literacy can see that the table documents and those claims are completely different. Those claims are nonsense. Because when you note in the figures here, because of our sound financial policy and our adherence to the debt policy, it is planned that Council's overall debt will decrease by $397 million to $239 million in 2030. Council's debt will peak at $656 million in 21-22 due to works associated with the Sunshine Coast Runway project. It is estimated that the transfer of operations to Council's operating partner will reduce the debt by $267 million in 21-22 in next year's budget. So those claims that we've got a debt problem are absolute nonsense. We are competently managing this area. Now, Mr Mayor, it's because of past sound financial management that we're able to cushion the effect on this community of COVID-19. And it's only if we continue to adhere to those same principles in the future will we maintain sustainability. So, Mr Mayor, I wholeheartedly support this budget today. It's been a difficult budget, a tough one, especially for the new councillors. I've never seen a climate like this, and the effects of COVID have been devastating to the economy and into our income streams, but we've come out with a balanced budget at the end of the day. So my support today can be summed up in 3 words: compassionate, responsible and sustainable. And on that basis, I wholeheartedly support this budget today.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. Councillor Dixon.
Good morning, and through you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, great presentation this morning. I just want to congratulate the people involved in, obviously, speech writing for our budget, the messaging, fantastic graphics on the screen, make it very, very easy for people to understand what this council and our budget is about. Obviously, to the hard-working staff, I know the staff have been working extremely long hours. I've been getting emails from our staff members at 1, 2, 3 a.m. in the morning. Everyone is working very, very hard, and that's shown today in the budget. $0 increase, really, for the most part for our ratepayers across the region is something I've never seen and didn't think was achievable when I took office in this term. So congratulations to Council on that. Whilst we've talked pretty high level, we've also gotten down into the weeds a bit and told people what it means for them on the ground. I'd like to talk more about Division 6 today. We're little than 4 months after our local government election, and I just want to touch on some of the things that I made commitments and promises to my area during the election campaign. One of the biggest issues in Division 6 is a state government school on Scholars Drive in Sippy Downs, and we've got an issue where the state government have built a state school on a cul-de-sac. They don't provide any car parks, they don't provide any more road upgrades. In fact, they don't do any upgrades at all with their development. I went out to the election and made a commitment that if I was re-elected, that I'd put up the total funding for that project, because I was just sick and tired of the blame game and sick and tired of the inaction by the state government. Today, I put up $490,000 of Division 6 capital works because I don't want to burden the council through our budget. I want to take that responsibility through Division 6. And I'm going to put up the $490,000 to build that road and just solve the traffic issues out there as soon as I can. So I've taken responsibility for that and stepped up where others haven't. I talked about the Sippy Downs Community Centre and Library being a huge project for me. We've got one of the fastest growing areas in southeast Queensland with no community centre and library. Today, Council will endorse $120,000 towards the design and future studies associated with that library and community centre. Not only are we doing that, but we've also received in the last few years the land dedication to make that happen right in Sippy Downs. At Palmview and Harmony, we've got $50,000 allocated for a community centre investigation, which is well underway already, a new community, and we're working towards that. I made a commitment around the Sunshine Coast Hockey Club. I made a commitment that if I was re-elected, I'd put up $100,000 towards their $500,000 synthetic turf enhancement. And whilst the Sunshine Coast Hockey Club is no longer in Division 6, it's in Division 7, I still made that commitment, and I'll be honouring that today with a $100,000 commitment to the club to make good. Mr Mayor, whilst we've talked about reining in on this budget to our priorities and putting the community first, I want to make the point that whilst we are doing that, we are also still delivering for our local communities. I hope today, by the understanding I've provided around community projects just in Division 6, that residents can see that whilst we're still concerned about the region, councillors are still very, very concerned and passionate about their local areas. Hopefully we can hear more today from my other colleagues about projects that they've managed to push forward and enhance for their local area. But for Division 6 residents, not only is this good from a region-wide approach, this is also very good for you at a local level. Mr Mayor, a fantastic budget, and again, well spoken today. And as the leader of our region, you've got my full support in everything that we will be endorsing here today.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor O'Prey.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and through you. Mr Mayor, firstly to you, well done and congratulations on your 9th budget. That's extraordinary. And also I'd like to thank and congratulate Michael and Isaac and your teams. It's a great day today, Michael, getting this budget out. Maybe you're going to sleep well tonight, my friend. It's been very, very well received. Mr Mayor, $782 million, it's all going into our region. It's very, very, very exciting times, and it's all about confidence. And I know that you made mention of the word confidence many times in your presentation today, but I'd like to reiterate a little bit on that. A couple of the notes that I'd like to reinforce today is that the $35 COVID recovery, when we first decided to put that $5 million aside and put it in a kitty away for a rainy day, we didn't think it would be anything like this. We were thinking floods, we were thinking fires, we were thinking cyclones, whatever it might be, and we were thinking about helping people build their houses and the like of destruction. We certainly weren't thinking about economic destruction, and that's exactly what this money was there for, and it's coming out into the community right now, and I'm very, very proud that we've done that. Probably one of our proudest things that we've done in our terms of local government. The airport, which you touched on as well, Mr Mayor, $4.1 billion by the time 2040 rolls around. $4.1 billion, that's a lot of bucks. That's a lot of money coming to our area, and that's something that we can hold our head high, and we're looking at things like visitation and tourism and all the things that business transfers. But the things that we don't often talk about, or we don't talk about enough, is that when you look at a plane in the sky coming into town or leaving town, we all look at the windows and we think how lucky these people are coming to the Sunshine Coast for the holidays, but we don't often recognise the belly of the aeroplane. Now, when you look up and you see that belly of the aeroplane, that's where our opportunities are now. All right, our ag business particularly, about getting the exports out of our hinterland, all right, particularly, and that opportunity for business and those bellies of those planes going off to who knows where in the world. Mr Mayor, I'd like to talk about another thing that's really important, which we launched yesterday, economic resurgence. Councillor Terry and I have got the economic portfolio, and we've kind of fallen out of the hot plate and into the fire because this is a really, really tough time to be taking on this role, and it's something that we're taking on wholeheartedly, Terry. Yesterday we relaunched the Economic Resurgence Plan and the Economic Resurgence Task Force. Now, resurgence, it's a cool word. It could have been recovery, it could have been something boring, but I think Anne Lawrence came up with the word resurgence, and I love it. All right? Basically, it means after a slow amount of activity, you get more and more activity and it builds. All right? And that's what we're trying to do. We're going to try and build this economic activity in the next 12, 18 months, 2 years. This is about bringing industry and government together. We've got the task force set aside with, I think it's about 6 or 8 of our best leading business leaders on the Sunshine Coast that are going to volunteer their time, get onto the task force, and they're going to actually put feet on the ground, and we're going to put things and plans into action. This is not about talking about the doom and gloom. This is about taking things forward. This task force is going to be a brilliant asset for this Sunshine Coast region, particularly the business community. The other thing I'd like to touch on, Mr Mayor, is our local business support programs inside economic development. So this is Paul Martins and his team. So we had a meeting with Terry just recently, and I put a little bit of pressure on these guys. I called Tim McGee aside, which is him and his team, Mandy Day, that look after small business units of council. And I told him personally that I believe he has got the most important job in council over the next 12 months. His job is to get small businesses back on their feet. So Tim McGee and your team inside Paul Martin's economic development team, led by Greg Laverty, I really want to see a lot of emphasis and effort from this council into this part. And programs like the Be Well program, the professional advice and support programs, the job placement programs, we're working with TAFE to build a better business programs, and the Level Up program, which includes 12 upskilling and webinars. All right, so there's a lot of work and a lot of emphasis and energy going into our small business communities. These are our mum and dad's businesses, which I've talked about a lot at this council floor, and it's the backbone of our Sunshine Coast community and economy. Mr Mayor, inside Division 8, there's a couple of projects that I'd really like to draw attention to, and that's particularly the Coast and Canals program. Mr Mayor and councillors, you'd be very well that I debated hard to try and get some more money for the Coast and Canals programs this year. We've been very successful. We've got another additional $100,000 coming into the program, which I'm sure a lot of the homeowners that are living along the canals will be very much appreciative of. So I want to thank councillors for supporting that today. I'd also like to bring attention to the way that we spend money. The way that this council spend money, we talked about the $243 million in the Capital Works program. Well, part of that is things like the upgrades of the Majimba Caravan Park, or Holiday Park rather. So upgrades to our holiday parks, which will in turn allow those people in visitation to come to the Sunshine Coast and leave a ton of money here. And that's really what this is all about. We want to see our small businesses, our mum and dad businesses, capitalise on the people coming to town and opening up their wallets. And on a real personal note, and as Christian said, down in the weeds, this is what I want to deliver for Division 8. Shade, shade, shade and more shade. I want to see shades over barbecues, I want to see shades over playgrounds, shades on our viewing decks. I want to see marquees and tents provided to our sporting teams and complexes around the coast, even right down to rashies and hats for kids at swimming clubs and nipper programs. So this is where I'm at the moment. I'd like to see more shade delivered, particularly in Division 8, but across the Sunshine Coast. So shade, shade, shade is my key message. Mr Mayor, in closing, I'm very, very supportive of this budget today. Confidence is king. And if we're not providing confidence, no one is. Confidence in their economic environment, confidence in their ability to sell, and more importantly, confidence in their ability to buy. People need to spend money for this economy to get rolling. Even more importantly, they need confidence in their governments. That's not just local council governments, but that's also state and federal governments. They need to get behind these small business operations and programs so that we can get these people back on their feet. And Mr Mayor, I'm absolutely certain this budget will provide that confidence and the confidence for small business to shine. So I'll be very much supporting this today. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Any further speakers? Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I want to congratulate all the staff for the amount of work that they put in. In particular, this is probably one of the most difficult budgets under the COVID-19 problems that we've had. Our community has been challenged and our organisation has been challenged in terms of how we've been able to respond to this crisis, and I think we've been able to respond in a very positive way. It's always difficult for the new councillors in the first term because the community might not realise, but all the aspirations that we have are diffused pretty much the moment we start to understand that the budget is put in towards the end of the end of the year. And so by the time we get elected and by the time we get to sit down and talk about budgets, the basic framework of the budget is already pretty much done. It reflects the previous council's corporate plan, operational plan, and budget that it's formed leading into here, and all the policies and everything that the previous council has put. So it's a difficult and conundrum for new councillors because we may want to change the world and we come in with all these aspirations, and we have to understand that we have to respect that, you know, this budget is in place and does support a lot of policies and a lot of views that we may not personally support. And I think I've witnessed that willingness from the new councillors and the previous councillors to be able to work through a process that gets us to today where we are wanting to adopt this budget. And when you consider that, I suppose there are major projects that we personally may not support leading into this election, that you realise that there are contractual obligations, and even though we understand that, we have to accept the process of what's happened beforehand to get to this point now. And ultimately, we may be viewed by those outside of us that we haven't been able to change, and I accept that we have to accept the fact that we are obliged and accept that there are contractual obligations that we have to meet. And we have a responsibility to make sure that we continue down that path. So there may be projects in this budget that we personally don't support. We weren't involved in that decision-making process, but we respect that that decision was made. We respect that contracts have been entered into, and we respect the fact that we have to be obligated to undertake that, irrespective of our own personal feelings about that. In regards to our own personal issues, that there may be decisions that were made in the past, and I'll bring up the issue about paid car parking. And I want it very clearly understood that even though I've supported this budget, and I will support the adoption of the budget, based on the conversation that I've had with all of my councillors, is that they've given me the commitment to understand that there is still a process of debate and a formal decision to be made in regards to how we progress that. So even though this budget has revenue for the introduction of paid car parking, I know that the previous council made that decision, and we are on a pathway to introduce paid car parking. There's no secret about that. It's whether this new council has a different opinion and a different position. Hopefully that debate will transpire whatever decision we make, and we live with that decision. But we have that process committed to me by all of the councillors that we will be having that debate, and we will have the opportunity to be able to put our point of view very strongly, I would hope, on behalf of our community. And so I thank the councillors for your support in terms of reassuring me that by supporting this budget, I'm not supporting the introduction of paid car parking from Mooloolaba, but I do respect that to go through on the 11th of June to ask the council under very duress circumstances to pull out $960,000 out of a budget when it would have been almost impossible at that point to try and find other items to take out. So I understand the pressures, and I've accepted. I've been around local government long enough to know that you just can't do that sort of thing at the last moment. But I also understand that we do have a number of budget reviews, and we do have that opportunity to review these budgets as we go on through the fiscal year. So, Mr. Mayor, I am prepared to support this budget today. I know that it does, as Councillor Hungerford mentioned, take in an understanding that we need to be compassionate and support our community. Our business community in particular has been devastated, and we have come in, and we may still have to provide additional support for them. We don't know what the future lies, but that has to be a commitment that we make. We've supported our community, and we've supported our community organisations who also have been heavily impacted by COVID-19. So ultimately, we build a budget around a process of understanding that, knowing all the pressures, that we move forward from here, and we hope that there is a light at the end of the tunnel that gives us hope and aspirations that as a community and as an organisation that supports that community, that we can move forward with confidence that we can recover, and that ultimately we can move forward to a great future for the Sunshine Coast. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Natali. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, I too would like to acknowledge the difficult task that the new councillors in particular had in getting their heads around what is a very complex document. So thank you, Councillor Natoli, for recognising that you really did have to get up to speed very quickly. And to all of those councillors, I'd like to thank them for having confidence and faith in the processes. It is a complex document, but it is one that I think fundamentally is focused on the theme of confidence and working with our community to get back to a sense of daily control that to some extent the COVID-19 pandemic took from us. So I think that this is a budget that has been well constructed. I'd like to acknowledge as the Portfolio Councillor for Transport, Arts and Heritage that whilst we didn't increase the levies, basically those programs largely will continue. So let me reassure the communities that are most interested in the transport side of things or the arts or heritage side of things, those programs are largely unaffected. And I'm very confident that we will continue to deliver very many good outcomes. In terms of Division 1, I am incredibly grateful to this council for the support they've shown to the placemaking process at Landsborough. Councillors, we do this well. We have transformed a number of our town centres, and as we speak, the Capital Works program in Landsborough is being rolled out, transforming the streetscape of Simpson Street. Sorry, not Simpson Street, Crib Street. We already did Simpson Street brilliantly, and we will make that a stronger destination that will be able to withstand the changes that are inevitable as part of the Beerburrum to Nambour rail duplication project that is going to have its impacts. I'd also like to acknowledge that we recognise that in Caloundra West, the new community of Aura, which continues to grow at an astonishing rate, will get another clubhouse, a district-level clubhouse, and that's part of the funding of this budget. But like the councillor has spoken before, I think I really did enjoy Councillor Hungerford. What fantastic three themes: compassionate, responsible and sustainable. I really endorse those three concepts. Well done. But Mr Mayor, a remarkably competent budget in very difficult circumstances, and congratulations to you in the delivery of that message, and congratulations to the executive and the staff. I hope this community feels the confidence that I feel that we have maintained focus for the 8 years in the two previous councils, and I'm really confident that this term of council will be focused on the greater good, first and foremost, of this region. We all know that there is always going to be tensions when you're focused on the greater good, that the greater good won't always suit individuals or groups or localities. That's the job. That's our job, to make sure that we are able to resolve those tensions as much as we can and deliver the greater good outcome for this region, which I think this budget does. Congratulations, and I certainly support it.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. I'll go to Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Through you. As a new councillor, I just wanted to say that we've had many meetings to inform us and to discuss aspects of this budget, and it's been a lot to absorb. This budget is a blueprint for our community as a way forward, particularly in this difficult time, and we still have many more decisions to make, with mechanisms in place, such as the budget review, to adjust and adapt to any environmental factors that we may face going forward, and to adjust and adapt to any future decisions that we may make as a council. In these trying times, I think that this budget and all of the meetings that we've had, every single councillor and all of the management team have been working consistently to deliver the best outcome for our community. And because of this and the opportunities to adapt and develop the budget further going through the year, I'm in support of this budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to compliment yourself and council officers, as well as the fellow councillors, on the preparation and work that was carried out to present this budget and for the result. I don't think it was mentioned by anybody, but unfortunately the net effect of COVID-19 on this council budget and the previous council budget runs to the figures of around about $20 million. And that was the scenario that we faced when we were re-elected and sworn into office. As a result, the budget had to be recast. And that was a very difficult job. And councillors had to virtually redo the budget, as did Michael Costello and the rest of the team at council. Before I mention a few things, I'd just like to say I give a special thanks to some of the departmental heads, led by Acting CEO Warren Bunker, who has been most helpful and always responds to any requests that I make. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Warren. Also to Michael Costello for the work that he's done and the information he's provided me in relation to the budget. To Tom Jamieson and James Rapire, who have been most helpful in my portfolio position with Councillor Christian Dixon. They've just been great. Also, Bill Hadrill, Greg Laverty, and other council officers who I could mention, but they've also been really fantastic. And I know that during the campaign I talked about the culture in council. Well, what I would like to say publicly is that the culture in council is far better than I had believed it was. And although there were areas where perhaps there could be improvement, I believe that improvement has occurred. And under the guidance of the acting CEO and the departmental heads that are there, I thank you very much. There are some areas which, whenever you cast a budget, there are some areas that you, as a divisional councillor, you may not be entirely happy with. I wasn't happy about the fact that the council had to drop $3 million plus out of the reseal program across the entire local authority. And I wasn't happy about the fact that prior to coming into office, I was to discover that some $500,000 was taken out of the rural road slashing and maintenance drain maintenance budget to go to overruns in other areas. I hope that those things will be rectified in the future budgets. I made a big issue during the campaign about gravel roads and getting them sealed. I'm pleased to say that in this budget there's a significant amount, which I'll mention later, to start that work. And that was something that was planned by my previous councillor. But there are other roads that are going to be sealed in the future, and I'm gladdened to hear from the Mayor that he is supportive of that. I was disappointed that we couldn't do anything about the cost, the exorbitant cost to waste pump out units for some property owners in the hinterland. But I assure those people that are affected by that Councillor David Law and myself will be working to try and sort that out in the future. Going to Division 5, if I could be indulged for a minute or two. I'm pleased that there will be almost $6 million in capital works carried out in Division 5 and more than $2 million on reseals and refurbishment of roads in Division 5. There'll be many more millions spent on maintenance of parks, roads, streets, environmental reserves and lands that Council owns. The $6 million capital works program includes new amenities at St Francis Nicklin Park and Palmwoods for $300,000, $100,000 on new and replacement seats and tables at Mary Cairncross Park, one of our premier parks, $300,000 on design and construction of pathways, and there'll be another $1 million in the next two budgets for the same purpose at Mary Cairncross Park. Some $300,000 in reconstructing the Wells Road causeway at Bridge Creek, which goes under water on a regular basis. Some 600, in fact, that was a causeway that I put in place some 30-odd years ago as a councillor. So $623,000 on sediment basin works upstream of Kalora Park at Palmwoods, and this will greatly assist the fact that the ponded area at that park has been destroyed significantly over the years by excess sediment being washed into the area. Some $200,000 to upgrade the car park and retaining wall at the Wombai State School, $925,000 on a gravel road upgrade and culvert replacement in McIlcrest Road at Udlow, $106,000 on the upgrade of the Glenview State School stop, drop and go parking area, some $385,000 in black spot upgrade on Glenview Road, Glenview, $865,000 on widening and reconstruction, which is currently in the project that's going, it was brought forward slightly, and Diamond Valley Road in Malula, $180,000 for safety improvements on Margaret Street, Palmer's upgrade, and another $130,000 at Element Creek Bridge upgrade in Condale. And they are the major items, but there are dozens of other smaller projects that will be completed in Division 5. And I thank the council officers and Mayor and councillors for their support for these things.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. Councillor Law.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I endorse the accolades and kudos already expressed towards everybody who has been involved in the creation of the budget that we intend to adopt today, or will certainly make that decision today. Coming into the role as councillor, it's always been made very clear that it is a region first, and then it's our own patch second. It's the division, and for the division of the hinterland at Division 10, I'm pleased to see that through the give and take, through the competitive process of thinking of the whole region, but also noticing what's in our own backyard, the projects that were put in play and were due to be rolled out through the coming year, the majority of those projects remain and will go forward. And over the coming days and weeks, I'm sure that I'll be talking to all of the relevant community members throughout the hinterland as I'm visiting the towns of what will be happening to make sure that the hinterland also advances and progresses along with the whole of the region of the Sunshine Coast. I've worked through my career building many budgets, and there have been some complex ones, and I've built a budget, and I've built budgets through the GFC that has happened in the past. But never have I been involved in the complexity of navigating through a budget process for, firstly, a large organisation that has such a huge impact on all of our lives across the Sunshine Coast, but to do that through the global crisis of what we've lived through the start of this year. It has been remarkable, and it has been a huge amount of work for us all. Having said that, the thing that keeps coming back to my mind as we've gone through that process, and it was said by someone smarter than myself, but I believe that we've done and created a budget where perhaps everyone is going to suffer a little bit, so no one has to suffer everything. And I think that is an echo that other people have said, but for me that's probably the most important thing that we've achieved through this. And congratulations to us all who've been involved in that process. Thinking of the region making, the one observation I would like to note on is the advancement and progression of the new City Hall and the commitment to make sure that that project goes forward. And I understand all of the reasons for doing that, and in particular at this time around the confidence that and the jobs that it will create throughout the community. And that, coupled with the determination that we should employ local contractors, local businessmen, to make that project come out of the ground, is very important and very significant. But for the towns where are going to be impacted in the future by the building of the City Hall, I just want to provide some reassurance that people are not leaving the current buildings for another 2 years. So we've got 2 years to prepare and to mitigate for the loss of those people out of their communities as they transfer their employment through to City Hall in Maroochydore. I can see and I understand the reasons that is happening, but we have 2 years to make sure that as people move to the City Hall to continue their future employment, and that will start to happen in 22-23, subject to progress of the building, but not everyone will be leaving Nambour, not everyone is leaving Caloundra as the new City Hall goes up and is occupied. And it's up to us to make sure that as that happens, those communities that will have employees leave from them have got a strong and vibrant future under the new circumstances that we see in 22-23. So a lot of work to do to prepare for that, but for today it's about working through and finalising this budget process, and thank you to everyone for what we've been able to do in very challenging times.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Just want to echo the sentiments that have been expressed here today by all of the councillors. It's been certainly a very challenging time dealing with the impacts of COVID on this budget, but I believe it's been balanced, considered and fiscally responsible. I just also wanted to touch on some of the Division 3 projects which I gave commitments to my community during the election campaign, and it's great to be able to share with everyone that the Parklands Boulevard duplication project has another $2.5 million assigned to it this coming financial year to complete that project, because that is a big burden upon the residents that frequently use that road on a daily basis. The other big one for me personally has been 8 years now pursuing the coastal pathway. That has been identified as being one of Council's most well-utilised and well-loved pieces of public infrastructure, and it's certainly been something that I've been pursuing actively on behalf of my local community and, in a sense, the wider sort of Sunshine Coast community. I also just wanted to bring up, just briefly, just a bit of a point of clarity, because I sensed some political grandstanding earlier from Councillor Natoli's earlier comments in relation to paid parking. I just wanted to clarify for everyone in the room that we had a budget workshop back on the 20th of May, which featured our draft 10-year capital works program. And in that, there was an item which referred to parking technology and commercialised section of the program, and it referred to an amount of $460,000 to be allocated for the installation of parking meters to the core area of Mooloolaba Local Area Parking Plan, the LAPP, to coincide with the timing of the Brisbane Road multi-deck car park. Now, I made some notes during that particular workshop that on page 36 that item was actually reported, and it was around about 11:45 that day that I observed Councillor Natoli. He actually remained quite silent on this particular matter. So there's a little bit of inaction there, which completely goes against the election policy where he campaigned against no paid car parking. Furthermore, on the special meeting on the 11th of June, there was an item 4.5 which related to the register of general cost recovery and commercial fees and charges for 2020-21. And that was unanimously supported by Council, including Councillor Natoli. So hence, I've been sitting here thinking about it, and you can understand that I find it a little bit misleading for Councillor Natoli to stand here today and speak about this matter of his grave concerns for paid car parking when his actions during the past few weeks have proven to be completely the opposite. So I just wanted to make that fact because I just can't accept that particular earlier comments. So councillors, I didn't want to detract from the budget today because I think the Mayor, the staff, all of the councillors have had a seat at the table, have done an exceptional job in dealing with this budget under the duress of COVID, the impacts, and I didn't want to do it, but it was raised, and I just had to point that out for the sake of transparency.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Any further speakers? Okay, councillors, I'll stand to close on this item, and I don't have a lot more to say. I think everyone's summed up the process very well, and I thank you for that. We're here because of the trust that our community has in us, and they expect us to make good decisions around their budget for the next 12 months and beyond. You'll appreciate that we're looking at things in 10 years hence in many cases. Again, I want to thank the council staff who've worked very diligently, and indeed, as been commented, we had to overturn a lot of the work that had been completed by the previous council before the COVID-19 struck, and that has been, I guess, made it doubly difficult for you councillors coming in. But again, I want to acknowledge them for the contribution they've made. We have a very important role in being the guardian of our community. and whether that's the financial guardian, the compassionate guardian, the sustainable guardian, the reasonable guardian, the responsible guardian. You know, they're all roles that we play, and as a collective, by working together, we can deliver the best possible outcomes for our community. And I thank you all in anticipation of your support for this budget. Again, thank our community for the trust they place in us, and I assure them that we, on their behalf, will be working as hard as ever to continue to deliver the outcomes that this region expects. So, councillors, I'd urge your support as we put this motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors, very much. Thank you to our staff. We'll close the meeting. Thank you to those who are viewing online. We'll close the meeting at 10:20. Thank you.